The world faces peak gold according to Goldman Sachs, but one geologist who's discovered more than 30 million ounces of gold says he knows where to find America's hidden gold deposits. Featured on the History Channel's How the Earth Was Made, this expert gold finder could be on the verge of a massive gold strike. Even a billion-dollar gold giant has engaged this small market cap company to use their proprietary technology. For the thrill of gold discovery with a new edge in Nevada, visit futuremoneytrends.com/gold. Greetings and thank you for joining us at futuremoneytrends.com. For more interviews and insights, please visit futuremoneytrends.com and subscribe free. We have a special guest today, Bill Murphy of GATA.org and Le Metropole Cafe. He's a well-known gold analyst specializing in exposing the different manipulations that go on in the gold market. Now, he will also acknowledge that there's manipulations in all markets, but specifically there's something sinister about gold. If you're looking for in-depth analysis on gold, Bill is your guy. He's very witty, and he knows exactly what's going on in the gold market. And we're here to talk to him about the gold and silver markets today. Bill, thank you so much for being on the show with us.
Great to be here, Daniel. I don't know how witty I am these days when they've done the gold and silver markets, though.
Well, Bill, you're a fun guy to hang out with, that's for sure, even if gold is going down. But we're doing this interview at a time when it appears, looking at, especially at the mining stocks, there is a nice breakout going here. Now, we've seen this before. Just let's start us off with what are you looking at when you kind of look at the overall picture for the gold market for both physical gold and the gold miners?
Well, the HUI bounced 40% off its low. That was quite a big leap and a nice one, a steady one, and it's a little correcting, and now it's back up again today. And we'll see if that is a leader like it has been in the past. In terms of gold and silver, and you might expect this from myself, I mean, it's all about the gold cartel and what they're doing to the gold price and silver price. I mean, silver's been in lockdown around 16. No matter what happens, gold went up $40 and silver didn't go up a dime. And when it comes to gold, the open interest has gone bonkers. It's up to 465,000. It's the highest in years, and they did that to silver in the beginning of the year, and they stopped it cold with the gold cartel, as I call it. Other people may call it commercials, things like that. But basically, the specs have gone very much to the long side, and the bad guys are going very much the short side. They took the price down from 1190 to 1160 and stabilized today despite a strong dollar. We'll see if they can be overcome. But there's one thing that I'm pretty sure of: we're not going to have a normal market on the upside. What they've done to curb the prices of gold and silver, with every reason for them to explode, has been unprecedented in terms of the amount of effort they've made of late. So when things change, and if the shares are right, it's going to be explosive.
Do you think, you talk about an explosive gain. Do you think the cartel essentially has almost screwed itself in the sense that you look at the supply chain and it's been devastated with the juniors, who are the explorers, are essentially just been wiped out. You look at the silver actual producers, and there's some real trouble in the pipe because that is actually attached to a lot of the other other metals like zinc and lead and copper. And so you've got a reduction of supply coming from silver. You got mines shutting down, major mines shutting down, and nobody's making any money. So there's no capital. So it's almost like they've completely devastated the mining sector, so much to the point where now we're looking at a significant supply disruption that can't even be corrected for 3 to 5 years.
Well, it's a very good point, and that's what they have set in motion. And I would even take it to the next level that we don't know how much they've rated these unallocated accounts and how many gold has been spoken for many times over by people that think they own it. We don't know what they've done to the ETFs. It's really quite extraordinary in terms of what's going on perhaps in London and then in China, and it could leave a scenario where this is where the explosion would come from. But all of a sudden, there's a panic to get secure physical gold or silver in possession. And that's what I think is coming, because I don't think this is for the whole enchilada. I mean, they're going to keep on gold and silver and keep them suppressed and keep them down for their various reasons until all of a sudden the market blows up. And then we'll get with something I call a commercial signal failure, in which many of the other shorts will be forced to cover because they either can't deliver or they know that the position is going to cost them too much money by staying short. And that's what I expect to happen sometime ahead of us. Hopefully it's sooner rather than later.
Bill, do you think it's a likely scenario or possible that because we have a weak yen, a weak euro, that should an event occur in the gold and silver markets, they rally big, does it not necessarily mean something negative for the dollar? Could the dollar be rallying at the same point in time or not collapsing as gold and silver are surging? Let's say gold's headed to 3,000, silver's headed to 100.
Absolutely. I think that's another good point. I mean, people are not on top of that as much as they might be, in the sense that all the currencies stink. One's worse than the other. I mean, look at the dollar issues. I mean, all the stuff that people are aware of with debt and what's going on here, and one thing after another in terms of the QE that we've had, and it's given us asset price inflation when just exactly the reasons with zero interest rates, gold and silver should have been flying instead of they've been going down for 4.5 years. And when this goes, it will be about physical possession. It doesn't have to be about the dollar. Naturally, a weaker dollar or the dollar falling apart will be a great catalyst, but it doesn't have to be at all, because the real issue is what they've done in terms of their own physical supply to suppress the price, and that is key. Once that hits the wall and the physical markets really take off and they can't meet the demand, or people are concerned about what they have, that's where the next big market is going to come from in terms of gold and silver.
We've had GATA, the organization you and Chris Powell run, a nonprofit, file some lawsuits against the Fed. You guys have obviously exposed the gold manipulation to the point where, I mean, even an idiot could see it and understand it. You put a full page out in the Wall Street Journal. You guys have done a lot to be the good guys in this scenario, in this situation. Are there any other good guys out there that you see that are doing something to fight the cartel actively? And I guess I'm kind of leaning towards, just like Stanley Druckenmiller, he bought $323 million worth of gold, but he bought it on the GLD. Is there anyone that is a good guy that's out there buying some physical gold, or at least doing something to where they can expose this very thinly traded market that is completely reliant on a paper Ponzi scheme?
Well, there's a lot of good people in the GATA camp, and I don't want to mention too many because I leave somebody out, and we're really appreciative of all the support they've given us over the years. And there's other people talking about manipulation. Ironically enough, many of them hardly ever mention us, which is their prerogative. But we've been on this thing for 17 years, including those 4 major conferences we've had all over the world, and proud of it, and we're going to continue to make efforts to expose this thing. And it's coming, and I think the real problem is, as Chris Powell, my colleague, says, we're taking on all the money and power in the world. And this is a big deal, and people just don't want to take them on. Whether it's for whatever issue, social issues, peer group issues, and they just don't want to go there. And so they leave the topic for someone else to discuss. And it's funny, it's actually gotten more so of late, even though we've been proven righter and righter. And we wish we could get more people that are involved in the gold and silver industry to understand it, because there's no more important issue. This is it. The reason that we have such a devastated industry right now is because of what this gold cartel has done. We discussed this earlier, what the various companies and people in the business in every aspect have been devastated. And it's really taken quite a toll now for a long period of time. It's far worse than it was when we started at the bottom in 2000, because people have lost so much money of late, and back then, things were low-key and they were gearing up, and of course we had these big moves in gold and silver, and it's been taken away. And that has to change, and I think it's going to, but it would certainly help to get some other people's support in exposing this thing, because the more it's exposed, the quicker it ends.
What kind of devastation or sentiment are you seeing out there at the conferences you attend? And I know you're a noted speaker at many of these conferences. I've seen you speak myself, and I know you're going to be speaking just a few days here at the New Orleans Investment Conference, which is very popular. So it'll be interesting to observe that. But what have you seen thus far at the conferences in the last 12 months?
Well, they're much more sparsely attended. They're being consolidated or canceled. Even the GATA's role at all these conferences has actually been diminished, in my opinion, to some degree, and everybody's scared to death. And I can't blame some of the individual promoters and conference people, because they got to do what they got to do to survive at this point. And it's a very, very tough time for guys to do what I do, and we keep waiting for things to change, and they haven't yet. And as you mentioned earlier, we could be on the cusp of that. You never know. But I expect when the real change is here, it really is going to be explosive. And it may not happen right away, but when the move comes, that's what's coming this time, in my opinion, anyway.
Yeah, I mean, you do have it does feel like things have changed. I mean, just looking at, all the dumping of our treasuries by not just China and Russia, but foreigners, a net trailing loss of or it's down for treasuries being sold over the last 12 months. Bad news, gold is rising. The stock market is going down, or it's at least in a bearish mood. It does feel like this is the tide has shifted. And then, if you could, I mean, what's going on with the physical demand? Because last I checked, the physical demand is just surging, especially for silver.
Well, we can't figure out how they kept silver down this long. I'm a big Eric Sprott fan, and he was talking about $100 silver, and I think he's going to be right. We just don't know where they've come up with this physical silver to keep it down. Now, I've had a theory all year, even last year, that J.P. Morgan bought the silver market when it ran up to $50. And meanwhile, as they were getting physical supply, they were selling 2 and 3 or 4 times that in the derivatives arena. And so they were able to bomb the market with physical supply, because it was really tight back then, and then they made a fortune on the derivative side on the way down. So it was a ploy, and if that is correct, and it's just a guess, that at some point in the year they're going to run out of that physical supply, which is being used to keep the price down, and that's when silver just goes bonkers, because we're not sure where it's coming from. We're guessing where they're getting from in the gold area and from the central banks and various sources, but nobody I know that's really sharp in this area can tell me where the physical supply is coming from, which is hitting the market. Because as much as we talk about the paper market, being the devil here, at the end of the day, deals are done every day on the physical side, and that's where the market is. So the paper market is the one that has influenced it incredibly. But again, bottom line, it's supply and demand on that particular day.
Yeah, the silver markets, the demand has been incredible. I mean, it's now trading, I don't have a calculator in front of me, but upwards of 70 to 1 on the gold front. Do you guys also follow platinum and palladium, Bill?
Not really. I haven't for years. I mean, I watch the price every day, of course, but don't pay much attention to it in terms of how it relates to gold and silver.
When people look at like a copper chart or a platinum chart, they see that it's also down. The commodities in general are down. What is your answer when people ask the question, on specifically gold and silver manipulation versus the manipulation of other things? Because Chris Powell has definitely made a nice headline years and years ago that we don't even have markets anymore. We just have manipulations, and I totally agree with that. And I mean, I think everybody sees that with the interest rates, the whole thing. You can go so far with that, with Chris Powell's comment. I mean, you can talk about the things we see on TV and our news and our politics. I mean, it's all manipulations. It's relentless. So specifically, what separates?
If I may just interject here, Daniel, you look at what happened in the past few years in the markets with the major banks when it comes to foreign currency, the LIBOR rate, interest rates. the mortgage market, the energy market. I mean, I think J.P. Morgan alone has been fined over $30 billion for rigging markets. I mean, these are facts. These aren't just someone's opinion. So, anyway, keep going. I just wanted to interject that because this is conspiracy fact, not conspiracy, just conjecture.
Totally. Yeah, so my question was specifically what separates the gold and silver manipulation from other manipulations we see? What makes it more sinister, or what makes it more concentrated? Is it because it comes specifically backed and supported by governments?
Well, that's part of it because, for your listeners, the gold cartel, GATA realized, was in addition to the bullion banks, the Treasury, the Fed, the BIS, other central banks, Bank of England, and so on. And it's because it's for the whole enchilada in the sense of it affects interest rates, affects the dollar. They do it for psychological reasons. What happens every time gold goes up? From the test standpoint, it's always bad for the politicians or the business people. It's always a negative. It's too much inflation. It's bad for the dollar. There's a crisis someplace. So it's like a barometer, and they like to diffuse that barometer and make it a non-entity. And so when you look at it, gold and silver in terms of the money issues is where it's related. They're related in comparison to the base metal area and other metals which have been hurt because of various economic situations. But as I mentioned earlier, I mean, if you just said 4 or 5 years ago you're going to have zero interest rates and you're going to have stimulus everywhere, and they're talking about it again today in Mario Draghi over in Europe, I mean, you would think that would be about as bullish a thing as you could get for gold. And they said, well, because we want to get away with this thing, we're going to have to kill gold and silver. And that's what they've done, and they've been able to pull it off. And so and you can watch it every day. We've got a great guy, James McShirley, a lumber company executive. He follows it day-to-day basis, and he can predict on the day before where the price is going to go. If it's going to go up, let's say 1%, he gets it a lot of times to the tick. And where it's different in gold and silver, they always do the same things. They attack at the same times. They're very heavily involved in the open interest thing, which I mentioned earlier. And you can follow when they move. Whenever there's a good news event you think be bullish for gold and silver, the price goes up, maybe briefly goes straight down. They don't allow follow-through. They have certain things that they do. They signal each other. We've known about this for years. And it's a bigger deal because eventually when this blows up, and it will, it's going to affect the financial world. And I think it will be the biggest financial scandal in U.S. history once it blows up, not until then.
Yeah, it's
because
funny.
of what it's going to mean in terms of other financial markets. And it's coming, and it's just a matter of time.
When a fat finger hits the Dow Jones, it's like a global story. And these fat fingers hit gold, on a daily basis. And of course, just like you said, at certain times they really like to go for the juggler, on these middle of the night holiday hours where they just crush it. Now, most people, if you don't trade, when overwhelming volume just hits the bid, or it looks like it's going to hit the bid, and it gets these stops going, the whole thing, and it just cascades on itself. But this is definitely an interesting time we live in because the fundamentals, like you said, go back 5 years ago. Well, now all that stuff's happened, and it looks like the helicopter money is probably within 12 months of us. And man, you've just got a really tight supply, especially in silver. Gold and silver I'm very bullish on, but man, am I watching silver? I'm betting you are too, because that seems like the one that if gold's going to explode, silver could do something that'll make history books.
I think that's true, Daniel, and they've had it in lockdown of late, as I just mentioned. You had a $40 move in gold and silver did nothing, and they're trying to keep it out, what I say, in the penalty box, because once it gets out of the penalty box, all heck's going to break loose, and it's liable to be very volatile. So I'm watching it as closely as you are.
All right, Bill Murphy of La Metropole Cafe and GATA.org. That's GATA.org. Bill, thank you so much for your time, and I'll see you in New Orleans.
Yes, sir. Looking forward to it.